What's going on? It's Lindsay here, and today I want to talk to you about emotional eating. So, I've been getting a lot of questions on emotional eating, and I want to go ahead and break it down a little bit for you. So, I'm going to be sharing a few different videos giving you some of my tips around emotional eating that I found have worked really well with clients over the years. So, tip number one, what I'm sharing with you today is very simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. So sometimes really simple things can be much more challenging than we anticipate. Tip number one is to stop making emotional eating the enemy. That's it. I want you to stop trying to avoid it altogether. So let me break it down a little bit. So first, whenever we try to create restriction around foods, that just feeds into diet culture, it feeds into diet mindset. And we know that diets don't work. They're always short term. We need a long term plan to deal with some of our feelings around food. So if I'm telling myself, I can't emotionally eat ever again, I start to think about emotional eating a little bit more than normal. It becomes a little bit obsessive. It can also feed into any kind of eating disorders or disordered eating that you may struggle with or have struggled with in the past, and we want to try to avoid that altogether. So, we don't want to tell ourselves that we cannot ever emotionally eat again. It's not realistic. And again, that creates this diet mindset, and we know that diets don't work. So, if you're familiar with my work, you know that I don't restrict foods with clients. So, we won't sit down together and I won't say you can never have pizza again, or no more ice cream, no more bread, no more cheese. Because the second that we're told we can't have something, we're psychologically wired to just think about whatever it is that we're told we can't have. If you have kids, and you've ever told, like, let's say you have a box in a room and you told them they can't open it, don't go near it, it's not there, you're creating this obsession around it. They're just gonna wanna know what's inside it, and they're probably eventually gonna go and open that box. It's the same thing. This is how we work as humans. When we're told we can't have something, we start to obsess about it and we just want to do it. We have that little rebel inside of all of us. So it's totally normal when we're trying to restrict something around food to become a little bit more obsessed with it. And we don't want that unhealthy relationship with food. The goal is to have a healthy relationship with food. So we want to avoid restrictions altogether, whether it's a particular food group or just restrictions of types of eating, in this case, emotional eating. We want to learn how to use emotional eating as a proper coping mechanism, because that's what it is, and it's a very valid one at that. So we don't want to restrict foods. We don't want to restrict emotional eating. The number two reason of why I don't want you to avoid emotional eating altogether is that eating is emotional. It just is. This is how the world works. Eating is culture. It's a celebration. I know every single culture around the world pretty much uses food in some sort of celebration. If you think about the holidays or if you think about birthdays, depending on what kind of family you grew up in, there's probably a type of food that you would typically eat during certain times of the year, because that's part of who we are. And that's one thing that humans have in common across the board, is that we use food as a celebration. So it's absolutely emotional. Food is also memories. It's going to connect us to people from our past. It might connect us to people that are not with us in the physical anymore. It's a journey. If you've ever traveled somewhere and ate a really good dish and maybe tried to recreate it, it connects us to that vacation or to that time when we were maybe living in a different country, or even if a different part of the state that we live in. So it is absolutely emotional. And to try and avoid emotional eating altogether, we're just setting ourselves up for failure, because we do have that emotional attachment to food, and that's okay. Emotional eating is not the enemy here. So if emotional eating isn't the enemy, what can I do to create that healthy relationship with emotional eating? So we want to make sure that we're using it as a valid coping mechanism, and it's not our only coping mechanism. So if the only thing I ever turn to is food when I'm feeling anxious, when I'm feeling depressed, when I'm scared, when I'm bored, when I'm lonely, if I only have food to turn to, then I need to come up with some other coping mechanisms that are going to help me through stressful times. These coping mechanisms are different for all of us. I cannot sit here and tell you what will work directly for you. It's on you to unpack some of those uncomfortable feelings that we try to avoid and figure out some other coping mechanisms. I have done this with clients before. We are all 100% capable of unpacking some of that, but sometimes we just need a little guidance. So I'm doing a course on emotional eating. Emotional Eating 101. It's going to start April 15th. It's only $30. It is a 4-week virtual course, and I'm going to help you work through some of those uncomfortable feelings that might be coming up that are causing you to turn towards food all of the time. It's gonna look different for every person in the program. So like I said, we don't all have the same coping mechanisms, but if food is the only coping mechanism that you have, and that's typically the one that you turn to, then there are some things that you can do to come up with some other ways to deal with the stress. And we want to be able to create awareness around food. So if I'm constantly mindlessly eating food, then I don't actually know what my body's feeling. I am removed from what is going on in my stomach, in my gut. I'm removed from what's going on mentally, and I'm not even paying attention. We've all been there where we ate a meal and we were like talking on the phone with somebody or watching a show, and we look down on the plate and that food is gone. And I don't even remember eating it. I'm like, did I really just eat all that? Because I don't remember it. We want to avoid that mindless eating. So week 1 in the Emotional Eating 101 course is going to be all about creating that awareness, unpacking some of those feelings, and learning some other ways to cope with food. That's what I've got for you today. Stay tuned for the next couple days. I'm going to be sharing some more tips and tricks around emotional eating. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below. Thanks for watching.